The headline on News 24: casinos make more people pray than pastors, because MPs are debating what to do with online gambling. And South Africans quite clear online gambling addiction. It's become a public health crisis, says Makashule Gana, RISE Mzansi MP, with not only the impact to people's wallets and bank accounts, but also to people's mental health. Advertising of gambling is a major driver. It's enticing everyone, from the youth to the elderly, from the rich and particularly to the poor. South Africans spending 1.5 trillion rand when it comes to online gambling spend. The gambling companies had a gambling revenue of 75 billion rand. And the reports last week coming out of our newspapers and our online news sources that even students on NSFAS are using NSFAS money to gamble. But what is being done? What are the interventions, and what are some of the possible regulations? Makashule Gana is an MP for RISE Mzansi. Makashule, really appreciate your time again. Why is it that political parties and those who craft policy have been so slow to introduce some form of regulation? I know there was a public members bill, the remote gambling bill, that was introduced, I think, in 2023. That has now since lapsed. Why are political parties only jumping on the bandwagon now, particularly now that we know that 1.5 trillion rand has been gambled away by South Africans?
Good morning, Lester, and good morning, CapeTalk. So we do know, and I've said it a couple of times on your show, Lester, that there was negligence on the part of the Department of Trade and Industry for some time. But since we started highlighting these matters, I think there's a bit of action that's coming from that side. I must say the debate that we had on Friday gave me a lot of, let's say, comfort to say that now everyone realizes that this particular issue of gambling addiction, the rate at which the gambling addiction is growing, it needs urgent attention. All the political parties agreed that there needs to be reforms, and that the Department of Trade Industry, the National Gambling Policy Council, and the provincial gambling boards need to act with speed to ensure that the South Africans are protected from all these, first the advertising, but also looking at the taxes that are being paid, the monies that are being paid towards counseling and rehabilitation. So we are starting to apply, a lot more pressure, putting the speed to ensure that the reforms comes without delay.
And those reforms should come without delay, because you argue that gambling is more than just some sort of entertainment or recreational issue. It's become an addiction and should be treated as a public health crisis rather than a moral issue.
It is, Lester, and it's not only me that says this. Even the World Health Organization has classified gambling addiction as a mental health concern, because it's a mental health condition. And we live in a country where there are not enough mental health institutions. So the people that are addicted to gambling cannot get the requisite help. So these are the things that we say needs to be done, and that's why I have proposed a 7-point plan as part of the reforms. And I do say that no, you need to look at the 7-point plan as not in isolation, but together, and to say, all right, if we limit advertising, if we then say, all right, you are spending 2.6 billion in marketing and advertising as the gambling industry, 40% of that spend must go towards responsible gambling. Let's then work with the banking sector to ensure that people don't gamble using overdraft and credit cards, and in some instances they are using stored clothing accounts to buy the vouchers so that they can gamble. So these are some of the reforms that we have placed on the table, and we are going to when we engage with the industry, when we engage with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and also the National Treasury, is to then say, as RISE Mzansi, this is what we put on the table. So we are no longer discussing and say no, because people like asking to say, but Ghana, what is your plan? We have now placed a 7-point plan to then introduce the gambling reforms in South Africa.
I would argue some of your plan, for me, is not strident enough. Part of your plan is to restrict advertising hours, ban gambling ads between 5 a.m. and 10 a.m. I would say ban gambling adverts between all daytime hours where children are likely listening or watching. You turn on the television to watch some entertaining sport on a weekend, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The opening bumper, the halftime show reel, the end of the game analysis, all largely sponsored by betting ads. Beyond that, they play in stadiums that are branded in its totality in the colors and the names of betting companies, Makashule.
I agree. So this is let's call it an opening salvo from our side. So what we are looking at, the kind of an advertising regime for the gambling industry, it must first, as a start point, use the same kind of advertising regime that governs the alcohol industry. So that you try to protect the minors, but if there's no move from the gambling operators themselves, then you need to then the last point will be to move towards what happened to the tobacco industry. But I feel like there is a space, a middle ground that we can reach. But some of the things that are disturbing, Lester, and I'm going to take it up with some of the operators. Someone sent me a picture of school children playing cricket, and they are being sponsored by a gambling company. It should not be. Back in the days, you had your, I think it was Coca-Cola and KFC mini cricket and so forth. So these are the things that we need to talk to say, no, look, we cannot have a situation where gambling companies are advertising to children. And because if it's a cricket game played by children, and it's the stamps are almost there, you know how the stamps are dressed as to advertise the gambling. These are the things that we need to start dealing with. That's why I push for a lot more responsible gambling messages, not just to tell people that winners know when to stop. Losers don't know when to stop. And in South Africa, there are more losers than winners.
Makashule, our listeners rightfully calling me out saying, but Lester, you work for a company that advertises gambling adverts. I am very much happy to say I work for a company that also allows me editorial free reign to question some of the advertisements. But with regarding the personalities and the heroes and the role models, shouldn't there also be a personal call for responsibility when I see a billboard at the airport of Urban Etzebeth, who is a hero to young boys and girls on the rugby field? If I look at billboards that include who else I've seen, Vernon Philander on Hollywood Bets billboards, should there also not be a personal call to the owners who run our sports teams, to the actual sports people who we support and admire, to say, you influence so many young boys and girls, impressionable young boys and girls. Do you really want to be associated with an industry that is harmful and damaging to South Africans? I know sport is a very, very short career. You need to make hay while you still can. But is this really what you want to be part of your legacy?
Yeah. So one of the things that you can repurpose the same kind of advertising where you're using sports personalities and so forth, is to then use them as ambassadors for responsible gambling. So they can still be there, but then say no, be able to tell South Africans that no, gambling is addictive. Don't gamble your salary away. Don't gamble the money that you don't have. So they become positive influencers. And we have seen, for instance, there are some cricket players in Australia that have now taken on the responsible gambling. They are educating the young ones to say no, don't get into this into gambling because it's addictive. It's dangerous. But the other aspect that I want us to deal with is the social media influencers who then don't even put to say, no, this is an advert of a gambling company. They just put it like they are always winning every day with the hope that they can, like mislead others to get into the life of gambling because they are not governed by anything. So we need to be able to say social media influencers there needs to be regulation around that. So if we start putting some of these and we have positive ambassadors, people who stand up and be able to say gambling is dangerous, gambling addiction is dangerous, don't gamble the money that you don't have, don't gamble until you have paid your debt, don't gamble until you have paid your children's school fees. If that comes from an Essenberg, if it comes from a Stuart Chavalala, it comes from a Vinon Felan, these heroes, now you are focusing on responsible gambling, and that's what I want us to get.
Makashule Gana, MP for RISE Mzansi.